just your psychosis.
It's
Your
gay men and you guys.
schizophrenia.
That's unfortunate. I am stuck with my non-alcoholic Guinness.
No,
and
dude, you gotta try these.
bitches.
These are pretty good.
No, you gotta try this.
Oh wait,
actually.
you got a non-alcoholic Guinness? Very nice, very nice. No, this is a
You know what
strawberry hibiscus drink.
Oh, very nice.
It's a very good like mock cocktail drink, you know?
You know my favorite part of the Guinness drinking it is?
Yeah.
Looking
The
like I have
creamy
white stuff on my mouth.
Yeah, the creamy white stuff, and I get to lick it off.
Oh.
I feel like a skinwalker already.
I feel one with the Lord.
That's right. Wait, are you actually recording? Oh yeah, you are recording. Okay.
Yeah, we're
cool.
recording, Brian. Come on.
Cool.
What's wrong with
I'm
you?
just double checking. I have good news too.
Welcome. Where's Sebastian?
I don't know. Where is he?
Up your ass.
This is his call too.
He's imitating God.
Well,
Well, he
Because
had to
he's
be a
not
woman.
I
there.
am God.
He had to be a woman. That's the thing. Well,
Because he's
actually, wait,
not there.
wait, let me not further. Yeah, because he already is one.
And correction, like it was said in the movie, God is not anything. So no woman, no man. So there you go.
You know, it's funny when we took the break and watching the film, Brian mentioned that he has two issues with the film, and now I know what those two specific issues were. It was breasts on God.
Oh my God, that's not the issue.
Yeah,
Okay, well,
I figured that Brian would be.
Well,
very
actually, I
sexist about it.
actually here. Well, when we actually start this discussion, I can get to my point.
well, I want to start the discussion, but where's
Let's do it.
Sebastian?
Yeah, what the fuck, Sebastian? Show
I
yourself.
actually I'm just preparing some popcorn.
Oh wow.
And I need to pee real quick.
Wow,
So
such a conservative
Oh,
moment.
so we're gonna take 30 minutes to wait for you to
whole
shit.
beginning when you were bitching and moaning about me chilling, then you're like,
well,
oh,
I didn't have to pee.
oh yeah, oh king of the castle. Here's my popcorn. Here's my dildo.
Wow, that's a very racist accent you're doing, Brian.
I'm sorry,
don't
no,
sound like that.
that's Kazakhstan. You're Iranian. There's a difference.
Wow, you're really something.
You're doubling down.
Sebastian, you're Khajiit. I don't know what you're talking about. You're a Khajiit.
I'm gonna go take a
You're a
piss.
real life Khajiit. Now, where's your
I
wing?
did name
corn.
my character in Skyrim Sebastian. He's not a Khajiit. He's an
I'm
Imperial.
gonna make it a moot point that every single character I play in MMO, like fucking whatever bullshit, I'm just gonna call it Sebastian. I've already done that with fucking Borderlands, with Skyrim, with Mass Effect, and with what's that other one? Oh, Fallout and
Kingdom Hearts.
shut the fuck up.
Suck my nuts. Where's my marker?
Where's my marker?
This is the way. Shepherd. Oh wow, that was the quickest
the
pee.
Iris Wish.
That was the quickest pee Sebastian ever had in his life.
Can we get to his
I have not done it yet.
Can we get to his quickest shit? Watch him set everything down and then be like, actually, guys, I must use the restroom. Give me 1 hour.
I have to study.
Actually, guys, I have to take a shit.
You're gonna shit on camera, okay? So
Okay.
I can continue with
Yeah.
this, please.
That's good.
I've
Sounds good.
peed on camera.
Okay, I don't doubt it. I'm ready.
Guess who played my toilet?
Are we gonna start?
It was
Brian.
Brian.
Fuck you all. Wait, are you eating popcorn with chopsticks? What the fuck is wrong with you?
That is as atheist as it gets.
That's the most pretentious shit I've ever seen.
He's
not
literally
pretentious, I
trying to
just-
get that aura, that Oscar
That
Isaac
aura
eating
farm.
Cheetos, eating
I just don't
Cheetos
like getting-
with chopsticks.
Wait.
Yeah,
Check. Julius,
there's
check
nothing
this
wrong
out.
with
This is
eating-
how I drink my shit, you know?
You need to be stopped.
Okay,
Mm.
but you're not using chopsticks, so
Yeah, but I'm using the tips of my... I'm doing useless, weird bullshit. That's what I'm doing.
it's not useless. I just don't want to get my hands dirty.
Julius, start this shit before I leave, please.
Oh,
Hello,
what?
everyone.
Mr. Freedom, Mr. Supposed alleged freedom has a problem with me eating a certain way.
Yes!
Mr. Pride from the conservative wants
Yes!
to control
Is
everything.
it that shocking?
Yeah,
You need
it
to
is.
be
What's the
stopped.
fucking problem?
You need to be stopped.
You need to be stopped. Yeah, I eat my popcorn
Welcome.
with forks.
Why don't you eat all your food with your hand? There's some cultures that do that.
Yeah, of course I do. Everyone.
Yeah. So why don't you? Why do you use utensils all the time? Why
Yeah,
use
Brian.
utensils at any time?
Yeah,
Depending on
Brian,
the
what's your problem?
food. Depends on the food.
No,
Okay.
Brian, I think you're full of crap right now.
No, if you, I'm sorry, you're not gonna eat fucking wings with a knife and fork. You gotta use your fucking hands.
Why not?
I don't eat wings.
You shut the fuck. All right, here. Do this.
Why not,
All right,
Brian?
take one.
Why do you wanna? Why do you feel like you need to control the way I eat? Let's start there.
Well, before
So
we go
yeah,
there,
before
I
we
just
do
want to
that
say I
useless
want to intro
bullshit.
the show.
Yeah.
I want to intro the show by saying that Brian wants to control all your rights, Sebastian.
Oh my God.
Anyway, welcome
You're right.
everyone.
Shut up.
You're right.
Welcome everyone to the podcast.
Ignore this
We're gonna be
podcast.
we're talking
Ignore it.
we're
Like
talking
Sebastian
We're not there
about
does.
anymore.
this great film. No, we're not there anymore, Brian. But get with the fucking program.
Yeah, but
What kind
still
of
ignore it. I
producer
don't
are
care.
you?
Still ignore it.
Yeah, ignore that one, please. Hello everyone. We are here. I am Julius with Bumbling Cinema. I'm here to talk about this film
More like
that
bumbling
is
cinema.
Yo, shut him the fuck up, please.
you're
Shut his
fired.
pretentious ass up. Oh, look at me, YouTube. I
Look
don't
at
like my hands
me.
dirty.
Continue.
I dated an Asian girl once.
What?
Careful now. Careful now.
Wow.
We are here to talk about Kevin Smith's Dogma. I'm here with Brian and Sebastian.
Hypocrites, charlatans, he has abandoned you to the whim of judgment. Prepare to taste God's wrath. 2 tickets to New Jersey, please.
God's decreed that I'm to charge you with a holy crusade. Stop a couple of angels from re-entering heaven.
We're going home.
If they get in, they'll unmake the world.
It's Sebastian's dating history, the podcast. That would actually be a really interesting podcast to
History of the
listen to.
podcast?
Yeah, about your dating history.
Oh, yeah. It would be pretty short.
Day 1, I went to her house and looked inside. Day 2, I introduced him
All right, so yes,
her.
Kevin Smith's Dogma, Julius.
Yes. We're here to talk about Kevin Smith's
We're not ever gonna do
Dogma,
this.
which we just watched. Finally, it's amazing because we didn't prank Sebastian, making him watch the Batman again.
No, we
We
No,
actually
literally
watched
should've.
the
walked out.
film.
No,
I
no,
literally
that's.
would have walked
I was
out.
telling you, I'm like, we should have been like,
I
so
would've
Sebastian,
left the
instead of
meeting
Dogma,
right then
we're
and there.
watching the Batman.
Right then and there.
I
would not have stayed.
Fuck these guys.
I would not have stayed.
We're over Zoom because Sebastian is out of the country currently. He's safe.
Safe.
He's away from the
Actually,
greatness
ICE
of
supported me.
America. ICE took care of him,
ICE-
and
ICE
Brian was
got
there
to me.
with bells on.
I was.
He was
Brian
laughing,
was there
pointing at my
cheering.
face.
I was.
Couldn't be me.
I'm actually in his basement trying to still see if he's gone left.
Right. Yes. Well, here we are. We watched this film mainly because Dogma has recently had a theatrical re-release. Recently, I think it was this
Why?
past week. Because I will tell you why. What are you pointing at? Brian, what the hell are you doing? You pointing
Pointing
at
at the
I think
breasts?
it's
mannequin.
pointing
No,
at-
I'm pointing at the mannequin.
Oh, that's
No,
his
you're
sex
pointing
doll.
at the breasts.
I'm pointing at the fucking mannequin.
Why are you pointing at the
Brian, you
mannequin's
need
I'm
help.
just saying. Leave me alone. All right, continue.
That's not even like a
You
proper
perv.
sex doll. Do you need
It's
one?
just you guys
I'll
are
buy
too
you
much.
one.
There's
if you
no
need one.
head.
What?
Like, I'll buy you
I
one
have-
if you need one.
I have a head and no body. You have a body and no head. So you know
Look,
what?
I have one that I don't
Julius
use
is like,
anymore.
Julius, like, you get half the week, I get the other.
Yeah,
I have one. I have one that I don't use anymore, Brian. So if you want it, I
What
can
is
just.
wrong? Stick to your fucking chopsticks, all right?
You have an AOC body pillow. All right. That's what you have,
He
Sebastian.
does, yeah.
And I'm not judging because I have that
Actually,
one
no,
too.
he has a Candace
It's a
Owens
Bernie
body
Sanders.
I
It's a
have a
Bernie
Bernie
Sanders body
Sanders
pillow.
body pillow with AOC on the other side. We are here to talk about Kevin Smith's Dogma, which is back in theaters recently because Kevin Smith recently reacquired the rights to the film because for years the rights to the film were owned by Brian's boy, Harvey Weinstein.
Why?
And they were personally owned by Harvey Weinstein, and he was holding on to it for a very long time until recently when Kevin Smith got the rights back. He's re-released the film theatrically. It's done very well.
How did he get rights to the movie? Was he a producer or?
He was
He
a
was
director.
he was a writer director. He's in the film.
Damn.
I believe he was a producer on it.
He
But
plays
this
Silent
film was
Bob,
made.
Sebastian.
He plays Silent Bob. Yes.
Oh,
Mhm.
Ah,
what does that look like? I thought you looked different.
Sebastian is blown away.
Blown away.
But this was
He's
back
like,
when.
hey, well, let's watch the movie again now with this context.
We're gonna watch the whole film again. Kevin Smith.
It doesn't
This
look
was back
like him,
when
though.
he was. This
Well,
was back when
obviously,
he was
when he
working.
was fucking
This
young.
is back when he was working with the Weinstein Company. When this film was made in the
Yeah,
early
he was working with
2000s.
Weinstein Bagels, you know?
Yes, sir. When he was at the very top of the View Askew universe, as it's called, films like Clerks, Chasing Amy, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. This is a part of that universe,
Yeah.
and this, in my
It's a
opinion,
Which is
cinematic
very
universe?
apparent.
you see, this is the benefit of my film school right now. You are my first two students. You're learning a lot right now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Kevin
can I get my
Smith,
money back from this fucking bum ass
Wait.
education?
you're
is a
gonna
cinematic
fail the
universe?
class. This is a cinematic universe, actually.
Holy shit.
No.
The View Askew universe, which predated the MCU by more than a decade with the premiere of Clerks in 1994, and then continuing with Mallrats, and then Chasing Amy, and then Dogma, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and so on and so on. And they're still going.
Yeah.
They actually just
You're a nerd.
released
Yeah, Clerks 3, right?
well, they just Clerks 3 was back in 2021, maybe 2022. Around that time, Clerks 3 came out. Clerks 2 also came out in mid 2000s. But
What about Cars the
this
movie?
was what? Cars?
Cars the movie.
Cars the movie?
Is it
Julius,
not
I think
part
we
of
need to
it?
kick this guy out.
Well, you know
we need
what?
to
This
kick
is
this
that
discussion
liberal
out.
logic we keep on hearing about. You know what? Brian's right. Okay.
So it's an ongoing cinematic universe that started like in the 90s.
Yeah, like
In
Cars.
the 90s. Yeah,
Mhm.
like Cars. If you need help
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah, Sebastian, what the
Uh,
fuck? All right, like Cars, what does that even mean?
Well, because I heard Clerks, but it kept sounding like Cars. So I just went, oh, I'm going to make the joke. So
All right, Sebastian, I know that we messed around saying that I have autism, but that shit's actually retarded. Like what you did right there, that's like what an actual like person with
it's called a
disability would be
spectrum
like
for a reason.
like oh
It's called a
cars,
spectrum for a reason.
cars, God, cars.
I
Dogma.
genuinely think, whatever.
I love you.
Yeah, thank you.
Love you too.
You genuinely try to think. Dogma is a film that deals with religion heavily, but in a way that's like satirical, funny. It's like an adventure type of film. It's a road film and everything. Personally, I've grown very attached to it, and I've grown a deep love for the film the more times I've watched it. And Chasing Amy is my favorite Kevin Smith film, but Dogma has come in the recent years. It's really risen the ranks, and I might consider it better, to be honest, than Chasing Amy, just because of the story of it, the ideas of it, the themes and everything. But you guys, it's your first time watching it today. We watched it together over, Zoom and everything. And you guys obviously have different ideas regarding religion and faith and everything. We did a podcast last year about Life of Brian, which is actually one of my favorite podcasts that we've done in this new kind of renaissance.
Because I was in it.
Because Sebastian was in it. And Brian was there as well. So what did you guys feel going into this film? Because you knew it was about religion and
I knew nothing
faith.
about the film.
I'm pretty sure I told you about the film.
If you did, when
You
you
hear the word
I don't
dogma and
recall.
you don't think, oh yeah, this is gonna be a film about religion.
Oh,
Do you not
nothing of
remember me?
substance.
I asked mid-movie what the name of the movie was.
Well, I told you ahead of time what the movie was called,
You
and
probably did. I
it
just
was present. It was present throughout the like. I opened up the
Julius,
screen that
literally, yeah,
said the
he opened
title.
up the screen and said the straight up title. It gave the
You saw Ben
biography.
Affleck and Matt Damon, and then you
Matt
got lost in their
Damon.
eyes and shit. Matt
Matt
I did.
Damon.
Damon.
They're so cute. I
Well,
literally cannot.
Brian, were you familiar at all with this film or Kevin
So
Smith's
I was familiar
filmography
with,
ahead of this?
I heard no, I've never seen this movie before, but I was actually familiar with some of the scenes. I had no idea that some like there's certain lines that I've heard, like beautiful big titty but naked women. Like I had no idea that's from this movie. So I was like, oh,
You
okay,
just
that's
thought that.
The
no,
Jesus
because
also caught me by surprise though.
oh
Buddy
yeah,
Jesus,
that too. I've seen that image like so many times. I had no idea that that's from
that was pretty
this
cool to see.
movie. Uh, and then
Buddy
obviously,
Christ.
and then what else? I don't know. There's another scene too. But like there's like three scenes in here and I'm like, oh, I had no idea this was part of like that movie. And also like it pulled up on my feed too, like recently, like literally when you talked about Dogma, a whole scene I saw right before this movie that I was like, oh, that's in this movie. The hell?
Well, that's the thing is that because it was re-released theatrically,
Mhm.
very recently, it's been kind of circulating the, recent media. I
The
wanted to check it out in
metaverse.
the theater, but I
Yeah,
wanted to check it out in the theaters, but I didn't get a chance to. I was happy to watch it with you guys today and everything,
yeah. It's a
because it
better
is an
experience too.
enjoyable. Well, I mean, ideally, I
Shut
would have
up.
liked everyone to be. I would have loved it if all three of us could have been in the theater to see
Oh
it. You
yeah,
know what I
yeah,
mean?
for sure, yeah.
I would have loved that, but watching it today was a really interesting experience because you guys were there and it was your first time, and obviously over Zoom, it's different. But one thing I noticed about your guys' experience, and you can tell me if I'm wrong in this.
You are.
Yeah.
That right? Yep, I knew I was
See,
ready.
the atheist goes, "You're wrong." The Christian
You
goes, "Please continue."
no, no, no. Uh, you guys were pretty enveloped in the story, I think. You guys were like entrenched in what was going on in the film.
It was very
Yeah.
good. It was very good. There's like some like things I'm not like big fan of, but like overall the story's really well.
Well, we'll get to those specific things because you guys are
I'm
different. I
excited.
think you're approaching this film from two very different viewpoints. Obviously, Brian's a man of faith, Sebastian is a man of science, um, if we can call it that. So
Yeah, the
with
environment.
this, with the yeah, a joke.
I'm
Uh,
I can't.
I'll have you know.
Sebastian
I'll
will
have you
grow
know,
up to
I
be
eat with
an
chopsticks with popcorn.
an
I'm the
environmental
superior.
lobbyist. Can we be
Actually,
honest, Sebastian? The environment as a business is just as sinister as big tobacco.
in a sense, yeah,
Wait, does
because if you're
sinister mean corrupt or sinister mean just sinister?
sinister means sinister, Ryan. What are you talking about?
Well, because like I
Hmm.
mean, if you look into like big certain big businesses like big pharma and stuff like that, that's not just they're both sinister and corrupt, you know?
But he said sinister.
Yeah, but like I you know what I mean, right, Julius?
Well, I want to hear Sebastian's response to
Yeah, I
this.
want to hear Sebastian.
I've actually thought about that. It is my belief that, I went into environmental engineering with the prospect of making zero money, because there's not much profit to be made out of saving the environment. Um, and I have thought about that, specifically like charging governments for restoration works. Um, and I think I've come to the conclusion that it would be, if I ever start my own environmental engineering firm, it'll be, um, almost a nonprofit, um, in the sense that there will be some profit because, people need to
Because
eat.
it will be me
It will
making the
be a
money.
nonprofit. No one makes money, but I make the money.
Everyone else is
Um,
volunteering, whereas
uh,
Sebastian it has become what he hated, the
Because
fat
yeah,
cat, capitalist of the
yeah.
environment.
I can't wait.
Um,
He will
but
be
yeah,
the new
no,
Elon.
He'll be burning the cash in front
I've
of a fully
I've mostly
restored
come to
woods.
I've like so far what I've come to settle on is, um costs should be whatever cost of labor and materials. And so that's essentially where the profit's going to be in the cost of labor. But that is literally it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, as you can hear, Sebastian's nobility is tied into his dirty leftism, whereas Brian is definitely, Brian was snickering throughout that whole diatribe about saving the planet and shit because he is a dirty conservative religious zealot. So, obviously two polarizing figures to watch Dogma with. Very so, Sebastian, with your experience with the film, you don't remember what it was about going into it, but when you hear the idea of it, like the setup is happening where we have the opening scene with Bartleby and Loki, they're two. What's funny is that
10 out of 10.
Loki is playing the kind of the role of Sebastian, where he's like fucking with the clergy, like just dismantling her whole belief system regarding religion.
I
But
thought
then
that
it's
was
revealed
genius.
that it's revealed that he is a fallen angel trapped on Earth and everything. So going into this film with a scene like that, what is your takeaway as someone who is inclined as you are?
My takeaway of like the film as a whole.
Well, like what
For the
what are you
opening
thinking when
scene.
you're going into it?
Yeah.
It's obviously setting the whole film up with that opening scene with Affleck and Damon and everything.
I'm
What do you
thinking
think?
I'm in for a fucking treat.
Mm-mm.
It is gonna be fun. Like I really enjoyed that opening scene. Um, yeah. I was ready for the ride.
It reminded me a lot of the interactions that you have with Brian.
Oh my God.
Mhm.
Where like I was literally because I was working while we were watching this film and I was listening to it and I was like, I can literally picture Sebastian as Loki and Brian in a nun's outfit right then and there.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of more or less what I was picturing, which is why I think I was so captivated by the film.
Yeah,
It really
you
spoke
were
to me in that sense, like Brian being the nun that I was uh
converting.
deconverting. Yeah.
Yeah,
Deprogramming is the correct term, actually.
deprogramming. Oh, interesting.
Hmm.
Okay, well, Brian, what did you think?
Well, I mean, it's not really I mean, I guess it is the opening scene, but I guess my journey within it was with the first scene, obviously, being the kids beating up the old guy. I was like, what? Okay, interesting. And then we didn't see until the very end, which I thought was a cool callback. I'm not gonna lie, that was like one of the things I was like not a big fan of. I'm like, who the hell are these kids and why they beat up an old man and didn't come in until the very end, which I was like, oh, that's cool, but it's kind of like, all right, very cool. Um, but for that particular scene, I think it's really interesting because yeah, when you're going into it, it's such like an edgelord, like, oh, the system is bad, and you're a you're a victim of it, of your own thing. And then she's like, I have to rethink my whole life. And then you find out, like, yeah, he
I'm
has a
getting
fallen,
wet just listening to you, Loki.
and he is a fallen angel. It's very funny. It just reminds me of like one of those
He
like
doesn't really qualify as a
Reddits.
fallen angel, though.
Well, I mean, he literally is. He doesn't qualify. What the fuck?
Well, because no, because doesn't he qualify? Like he technically left heaven, but he wasn't sent to
Well,
hell.
he
So that,
didn't leave heaven.
well,
He
I
was
guess he
kicked
got
out of
kicked out.
heaven, but he
Okay,
wasn't
okay,
He
fully
was
kicked
he
out.
was banned.
He was banned.
okay. He was banned.
Yeah.
So is there like an in between an angel and a fallen angel? Because I think
No.
that's where they would land.
No. Well, I mean, there's
Okay,
Well,
only
he was the angel of death, technically.
yeah,
yeah.
Bartleby, they had another term for him,
Yeah, he was
but
a
he was a
Loki
watcher.
was
watcher.
the he Bartleby was a
Watcher.
watcher.
Yeah, Bartleby
Yeah,
was
Okay,
a watcher. Yeah.
right. So Loki was um
Was the
the
commandment of
vengeance of
yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh in this film's history and everything.
Yeah.
But Brian, I know that you like obviously you're religious and everything, but you also
Yeah.
like pride yourself as being a historian.
Yeah.
So how was that aspect of you reacting to a lot of just the theology in the film?
Oh, I thought it
The
was really
representation of
interesting.
religion.
Yeah, I thought it was very intriguing. At first I was a little confused on why he was kind of like named as Loki. You
Hmm.
know, as a mischievous being. It wouldn't really make sense to put Azrael as being Loki. in my
As
opinion.
the
Like
Azrael's character?
Azrael's character being named as Loki. But I guess it makes sense why Azrael, because I guess Azrael is just also, yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, this is gonna go a little bit into it, right? And I'm sorry for going into it, but that one character that Salma Hayek plays, um
Serendipity.
Serendipity, right? I know that they're trying to explain like, oh, is the muse, like I don't know what that at all means. I'm sure Azrael or Azrael means something similar in like some other mythology or some other belief system in like a similar format. So maybe that makes sense. But if not, then I mean I'm sure it does, but it's just intriguing that they named him Loki and not like something else for like someone who has like a much more low temperament and like as being a being of vengeance, maybe like Artemis or something very more Greek would have made more sense to have someone very, or if you were going to do Norse mythology, at least name him like Renfair or something like that. Something that makes like conceptual sense of someone who did take out revenge due to the fact that someone has caused internal damnation or torment towards them. But like Loki is just kind of like mischievous, and I feel like this Loki, he wasn't fully mischievous. He was almost kind of like, I don't know. Well, I mean, because the
Well,
whole
he was
movie,
sinister, if
he
we're
was
going to use
sinister,
that word
yeah, for
again.
sure, yeah.
He's definitely a character that is, well, I think the name Loki is appropriate given
Mhm,
because I know Kevin Smith is a big comic book fan, and
mhm.
I know he knows who Loki is in the aspect of comics and
Yeah.
even Norse mythology and stuff, where his character is based in resentment towards his creator, which is
Mhm.
very similar to the Loki of the comic, like of the Marvel comics, in terms of his
Yeah.
dynamic with Odin, or even just in mythology. You know what I mean? Like, so I feel like that was probably pull from there because he's like pulling from all
No.
sorts of
I want to say it makes more
aspects.
sense on a comic aspect, right? And definitely like if you look into Kevin Smith's like discography, like it makes sense to pull that from. But like for a theological aspect or like a historical aspect, it didn't like I was really pondering on the name and the name choice. But I guess if you did look at it from a comic sense or from just like a main media sense, then yeah, you know?
Yeah. Well, Sebastian, what did you think about the representation of like because this is a very religious film, but I don't know if it has a message that's very clear, but me being like someone who's not religious but not closed off to it, more of an agnostic, um I like the film because I don't consider it being preachy, I don't consider it preachy. But what did you feel about the representation of religion in the film?
Well, I thought
My
all the
popcorn,
names getting
my
to hear like
popcorn.
uh, a lot of the names and a lot of like the mythology was pretty cool. Like the ranking of angels getting mentioned. That was something I heard like growing up, and I always thought that's like kind of interesting because I've always been like big into mythology, so that interests me. Hearing like names like Metatron, that's kind of cool. Just because it's a cool sounding name.
I would say
Um,
Alec
The Last
Rickman was
Scion.
amazing. He was my
oh,
favorite
Oh yeah,
character in the whole. He was awesome.
he was great.
um, I
R.I.P.
was a bit thrown off by the Loki name, but I didn't really think much of it. I just thought, oh well. I mean, it's not supposed to be a serious film. Um, and so in terms of the representation, I, I mean, it was supposed to be like a Christian film, and that's
Well, it's a Catholic film, I
like
think.
Yeah,
well,
Catholic.
well,
Yeah.
Catholics are Christians, so
No, love you.
anyone who believes in Jesus Christ is a Christian by definition, and then you have your different
Mhm.
subsections such as Catholics, Protestants,
Yeah.
Evangelicals, Mormons, etc.,
Yeah, but
etc.,
they're not
etc.
Christians. They believe in a very different system from us.
But you're all Christians, so
No,
okay, well,
they just don't believe it.
you can live
Love
in
you.
your you can live in your made
Alex,
up
I'll
land,
explain that in a
but
minute too. That was one of my other complaints.
you can Google this, and you'll see that the general umbrella term for anyone who believes in Jesus
It may
Christ.
be an umbrella term, but it's not an accurate term.
Well, let
Okay,
me chime in here
okay,
because
okay.
there's an umbrella term for people who believe in the Roman gods and the Greek gods. And though the umbrella term for them is crazy people. So, I think we can, attribute that to what's going on here if we think about it.
I'm not sure what you're trying to say, but okay. I'll
Well,
roll with it.
I'm helping you out, man.
Are you calling him crazy?
I'm actually talking about both of you, to be honest.
Okay. Well,
There's a difference between Sebastianites and Ryan.
Brian, it's just Brian. Not even Brianites. It's just
regardless, it's
Brian.
a Christian film, so it has a lot of like that Christian imagery, and I thought
Yeah.
that was, I mean, it was well done. I did find something like the Muses. That's like a Greek theme, and so that was kind of interesting to see, because it wasn't just like, even though yeah, it's a Christian film, there's like different incorporations of like other mythologies. I don't know. I thought it was pretty interesting. I thought it was,
Well,
in that aspect,
what
it was fine.
what's interesting about what you're saying is that even though I understand where you're coming from, I don't know if I would consider it that specifically. And you might say that there's no difference between what you said and what I'm about to say, but I would consider it less of a Catholic film or a Christian film and more of like just a film of faith, because they're talking about and the Muse even describes this at one point where it's like it's not about what type of flavor of faith you believe, right? It's about
Mm.
that you have faith in general. And I really respected that about the film because it reminded me of like the ending of all things, it reminded me of the ending of Lost, where it's like they're in heaven, but you see like different symbols from different religions and everything, where ultimately it's just about belief in general, which I really appreciate about the movie, because this movie is pretty much, and Brian, I'm curious what you're going to say about this.
Yeah, sure.
This movie is very much Kevin Smith's take on Star Wars, because I know Smith is a big fan of Star Wars. I mean, in his first film, he has a whole scene where they're debating the politics of the Empire.
Yeah.
And they even reference the original film in the movie when they meet up with Jay and Bob and everything. So if you look at Bethany as Luke, and you see those two as R2D2 and C3PO, you see Chris Rock as Han Solo, you see the Muse as this person. Like, I think he took the template of Star Wars, the adventure story of the Chosen One, and just it replaced the Force with Catholicism, in my opinion. So what do you think about that?
I feel like it's very loose. I don't know. I feel like, I mean, I see what you're saying, right? And I can see
Because
why
like
Kevin
if you
Smith.
look at Bartleby is pretty much Vader.
No,
Like, dude,
no,
yeah,
I
no,
love you.
he's a
No,
fallen
No,
he's a
no,
fallen
no,
believer of
no.
the
you're
I
wrong.
love you.
Force. He's
Then
You're
who would
how am I
wrong.
Loki
wrong?
be? Loki, what is Loki then? Because Loki would
Grand
be.
Moff Tarkin. Loki Loki is Boba Fett.
That's such a stretch. I love
I
you.
mean, by
And
that
I don't think
definition,
it's a stretch at
I
all.
think it's
They're
no, no. Here,
it's a
it
huge
makes all right,
stretch.
here because
It's a
it
huge
makes
Bartleby's
stretch.
sense for the
fall is
first.
akin to
It makes
Anakin's.
sense for the first half, right, to understand with the hero's journey. But that's also like that's kind of just like a blanketed thing where like any like format has formatted themselves after a Star Wars journey. So it being like
Correct.
Kevin Smith's like
Correct.
Well, with the
this is
hero's journey,
directed. This
the
is
hero's
similar
journey.
to Star
I'm
Wars.
not
It's
saying
like it's not that
I'm not saying
similar.
I'm not saying he remade Star Wars. What I'm saying is I think he took that template. The I,
Yeah, but it's
Kevin
such
Julius,
a
Smith
have you
is
what,
a
what
considered?
I'm saying
Kevin
Have
is
you
such
Smith
a
is a
considered?
base.
big
What I'm
Star
saying
Wars
is such a
fan.
Have you
base
considered?
template that it doesn't really feel like. Oh, here, this. Oh, here.
Have you
Look
When
at
they
you know
considered
what?
the
reference
Oh, here.
fact?
Star Wars in the film,
Have you
it's not
considered?
The
Have you
slight
considered
once
the fact
reference.
that
It's Star
maybe,
Wars coded.
yeah?
not even
Have you considered maybe that maybe Star
the,
Wars is
Bethany is the
Christian
chosen one.
coded?
She is the daughter of the
Yeah, she's
Force. What are you
supposed to
talking
be
about?
Jesus.
She's the dot. Yeah, she's like the
She's
niece
No,
of
supposed to
she
be
is
Jesus.
Jesus.
literally
And
a disciple of Christ. But if you don't understand that Luke
and
Skywalker is a disciple of someone who was created immaculately, and
Yeah,
the
but
Immaculate
Luke isn't a
Conception,
disciple.
suck
Luke
my
is.
balls.
Julius,
This was such a stretch.
hold on.
Wait,
It's not a
was this
stretch.
was this
It's
This is
movie?
not a
not it.
stretch when they
Was
This
this
bring
is
it
not
movie
up.
it.
to discuss
Look,
Star Wars?
Wait, okay.
Was this your plan?
Bro,
Was this your
no,
plan all
no.
along?
Yeah, I wrote and directed a Dogma, and I put in a line about
Yeah.
Star Wars
I
in the
just
film.
real quick.
Yeah,
dude.
exactly.
I can
No, you're
understand
so
certain
off.
When
characters.
they say that,
No.
hey, this is like that film. When the characters say, "You're Han, I'm Chewie, this bitch is Obi-Wan," how
Have you considered perhaps that George Lucas,
George R. R. Martin.
George R. Martin, George
J.R.R.
Lucas
I've not considered him.
was somewhat inspired by religion for Star Wars?
Yeah, but okay.
Okay.
I concede
And
that.
so,
if I'm going to concede that, you have to
if you're
concede
gonna-
that Kevin Smith was inspired by Star Wars.
No, I'm sure.
Well,
because
sure,
he was.
in the
We're
sense
not saying that he
in the
was
sense
inspired
that-
by it,
in the
but
sense
we don't
that
see
Golden
the
Hour-
inspiration on the movie.
Yes.
That's what we're saying. He can
And
How
say
do you
he's
not see
inspired
it?
by whoever, but like obviously, all right, here, this bitch Obi-Wan. Okay, cool line, but like we don't see that as the audience.
That's
and
it.
people who aren't as big
It's just
of
a
fans
reference.
as
You
Kevin-
don't. Okay,
It's
It's
just a
big.
reference.
You don't
Look,
see.
Battleby,
You don't
look,
see
no,
the parallel.
Hold on. Battleby is literally supposed to be Lucifer. The main lead is supposed to be Jesus.
He's not Lucifer.
Oh no, he's not Lucifer. He's a
That is
renegade.
literally
He's a
his
rebel.
journey.
No,
That
no,
is literally
journey.
his journey.
Oh no, you are right because they do call
No,
it
it's
out where they
akin,
say.
but he's not literally Lucifer.
Well, of course, it's not literally Lucifer. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
In
he's
the terms
literally
of,
Ben Affleck.
in terms of inspiration, Bettleby's Lucifer. The main lead is Jesus, etc., etc., and it just follows a regular adventure format. It doesn't. It's not Star Wars coded. I really think you're wrong. Like
No, I think it's the hero's journey, which
and
is
you know,
the journey of Luke as well.
well, so is the journey of like any other hero's journey story.
So
like
is the
that's not
journey.
I don't think it's-
Spaceballs.
I don't think it's a stretch to say that Kevin Smith, one of the most notable Star Wars fans who references the parallel between his film and that film in this movie,
Yeah.
was inspired, and especially when
I feel like I'm talking.
Bethany's
I feel like I'm talking to Brian
character
about
arc
religion
is
right
so
now.
similar to Luke.
I feel like I'm talking to
Can you-
Brian about
Brian,
religion
Brian,
right
not-
now.
Brian,
not
you're the
saying that
biggest
he's
Star
not-
Wars. You're one of the
Yeah.
biggest Star Wars fans I know. You're
That's
gonna
for
tell
sure.
me there's no parallel between
That's
Bartleby's
not what
journey
I'm
and
saying.
Anakin?
Here, let me finish. That's not
But-
what I'm saying. What I'm stating is that while that might be true, us as just first-time viewers, as me and Sebastian, who we went
course.
into this really empty, don't see that because
Well,
it's
you
not-
didn't see
here.
you haven't seen the film as many times as me. Of course,
Also,
you
another-
probably didn't see
also-
that.
Well, obviously, the more we get, can you not see this? No, obviously, fucking
I didn't
no.
say that. I said this
I
is
was
how
too
I
busy
see
on the
it.
shit demon.
No,
I was too busy
no.
on a literal
You've been
demon that was
trying to
spitting out
convince us this
fucking
whole time
caca.
that this is the way it is. We're supposed
No,
to be
you're
talking
trying to
about dogma.
convince me that it's a stretch when I
You're
don't think it's
gaslighting
a
us.
stretch
It
when
is a
all
stretch.
the evidence
said-
is there.
Because you said, "Do you see it this way?" And we're telling you no. And then
How
you're
does the
saying,
how can
atheist
you-
and the
how can you
Christian team
not?
up on
Could
the
you not?
agnostic?
And
Tell
we're
me
telling
that.
you how
It's
we
because I
cannot.
have one foot in the door and one foot out of it. That's why.
Yeah, exactly. You're the worst. You're the wretched hive of scum
Look,
and villainy. You're on in between.
For Battleby to be like,
Be
Luke,
like
you
a
said?
Vader kind of character.
Yeah, but you could say
For
that
him
with
to
any
be
character
an
who's a
Anakin-
villain. He's
for-
not really a Vader type of character. If anyone who
Why is he
really-
not?
Are here
because he was never okay. Let's just start by the
We didn't
He
have a
was not-
lightsaber.
he was never a protagonist. So just in terms of story, that doesn't apply to him.
Well, I wouldn't
Well,
say that he
Vader
Second of
wasn't
all-
a protagonist in the original film either.
Second of all, Vader was supposed to be a chosen character, a chosen individual, which was not the case for this angel.
Yeah,
he
if
was
anyone
just
going
another
to be
angel.
The chosen, it would be.
If we're looking at
Bethany.
just the original film, which I'm talking about, I'm not talking about the prequels. This film
If
came
you're
out
just
before
looking at
Revenge
the
of the
original
Sith.
film, then the Vader is just the villain. Period.
Yeah.
Whereas
Right,
Battleby,
remember-
yeah.
Whereas Battleby-
remember, he didn't
Whereas
start
this
as the
angel-
villain. He was just kind of along the program trying to help his buddy in order to get
Anakin
back
didn't
into...
start as a villain either.
But you're
Yeah,
saying
but
we're
you
just
just
looking
said
at-
to ignore the prequels and to look at the
So
originals.
full of shit,
and looking
Julius.
at the
You're
originals,
so full of shit,
Vader
Julius.
is
The
a
original
straight-up
trilogy-
fucking villain.
Brian, where did the story of Anakin start? In the prequels or the original trilogy? In the original trilogy.
Exactly. So you're saying
Right,
look
so
at
suck
the
my dick.
prequels, and I'm saying no. Look at the original
No, yeah,
trilogy
because-
where Vader is just the villain.
Brian, unlike you, Kevin Smith didn't grow up with the prequels. There were other films that he grew up with where they talked about Anakin
Unlike
Skywalker's
you, at
journey.
least fucking Kevin Smith didn't.
I'm
I'm
really
like-
sorry, Julius, but you're
This-
you're critical.
All right, here. This
You're-
is one
you're
of my
so
biggest-
off.
Not even a
All right,
critique.
No.
I don't
moving
think
on
I'm
to
off
the
You're
point.
next
so
one.
off point.
Moving
I
on
don't
to
You're
the
think
so
I'm
next
off
off
one.
point.
point.
I want to bring this
And
up.
you're
from the
moving.
start.
You keep moving the goalposts, Julius.
I
You
wanna-
keep
I
moving
No,
the
wanna-
how am I
goalposts.
moving the goalposts?
Because first you said
The both of you.
What I said was a compliment to the film. I revered the film because I think Kevin Smith took two worlds that he loved. He grew up as a Catholic. He grew up very religious. He knew his shit. He knows his stuff about religion. He doesn't identify as a Catholic anymore. He took that and his love for Star Wars, and I think he blended both to make a film of his own. And I think I
I'm
don't.
sure
That's
there's
not a
hints to
critique.
Star Wars. I'm sure there's, but it just doesn't
There are
feel
direct
like
references.
I'm sure. All right, there may be direct references, but someone coming into this watching for the first time, I'm sure I'll watch it for the second time or the third time. I still won't see it because I just don't see that journey. I'm too focused. All right, here. This is where I want to bring in, and it's a perfect segue into this point. This movie is good, but it kind of makes me feel like it's in that cult classic of like this is a great film. But for me, watching it the first time, it kind of suffers from a lot of like early 2000s, like late 90s bullshit stuff. Like I'm sure, like you told me with the Harvey Weinstein, like the whole unnecessary thing with Salma Hayek like dancing, like I was like, oh, okay, interesting. Like, yeah, she's hot. I'm not gonna deny that, but like, what's the point of that scene? She doesn't explain why she's doing that either. Like, there's no purpose for her to be there to do that. And then the shit demon, like, okay, that's funny. It is what it
It's funny.
is, you know. But like, and then also, I'm not gonna lie. After watching Clerks, I've watched it like so long ago and stuff like that. It was a good movie, but like, I'm not gonna lie. That's the weakest link in this movie for me is Jay and Bob's character. It feels so like I get it, it's supposed to be a part of this whole universe. I just wish they were taken out of this film. Like I understand like their
Really,
purpose of it. I just feel like they're the weakest link of it. And also another thing, Bethany's acting, the actress who's acting as Bethany in the very beginning is so weird.
it is very
It's
hit and
so
miss
like I
in
don't
my
know why
opinion.
it's so weird.
I
Like she doesn't
agree.
feel like a natural person and towards the end of the film where she finally acknowledges that God might be real. And then that last ending line with Chris Rock being like, "Are you a believer now?" No, bitch, you came back from the fucking dead and you're fucking pregnant. How the fuck are you not a believer? Like that's such a weird line to say. Like it doesn't make any sense.
I don't think
Like
that's a weird
for
line.
actual like
I don't think that's a weird line. Um, but more so, I will agree with most of the points you made. It had a lot of flaws, that film. And I
and
was
I think
like,
that it's the detriment of
eh,
just like maybe 90s early
no,
2000s comedy film, but it's
no,
just, or maybe like, who knows? I
no.
mean,
It
I'm
was
sure,
just it.
wait, I'm sure Julius knows. I'm sure Julius knows why there's certain things in the film that's the way how they are, but it just feels like a drastic, like, weird difference between the scenes with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon and then the rest of the crew. Because the rest of the crew feels like not another teen movie, but like even worse. And then with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, it feels like there's an actual weight and like a longevity. And honestly, it's not even with the rest of the crew. Chris Rock is great, loved him, but it's just with Bob and Jay's characters, specifically with Jay. I feel like he could shut the fuck up a lot of times. Like some of the lines
Well,
that he says is funny, but it's just like it's unnecessary because it feels like the movie to me, while it is a comedy, it feels like it's trying to be more than that, but like it's also like not trying to be as serious or take itself as serious, especially with the beginning, with the real beginning, with it explaining, oh, this is our interpretation, this and stuff like that. We don't mean to do that. And that's the other thing with like theology. There's nothing really substantial to like comment with theology with this movie due to the fact that they've acknowledged that their opinions on what the matter piece or whatever they're viewing as is their opinions and their opinions only, right? And I'm sure this caused a lot of controversy back then for people being like, oh,
oh yeah, it did.
but it's like
It caused a
they
wave of
literally state
controversy.
that this is their opinion, you know, and if you get offended, that's really on you, you know. I mean, it's not like they did a movie and then they're just blatantly making fun of whatever without stating it. They literally state it, and that's the very beginning. And the critique of what they're making makes sense. But the issue with the critique of what they're trying to critique on with religion or with theology or with faith or whatever feels like it's really outshined by the unnecessary bullshit 2000s comedy, late 90s bullshit that just makes it feel like there's a lot of natural funny
Unserious.
moments, but like there's a lot of unseriously unfunny shit that's just like okay, like haha, like
Well,
if
let me
Yeah.
some
respond
little
to some of
baby,
that.
I might
Brian,
find it hilarious.
Brian's wrong about the Selma Hayek scene. That's just number one.
Well, I mean, is it a
Secondly,
reference to
uh,
Dust to Dawn? I mean, because what other like why would it be in there?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, I feel like any scene, I mean, you could ask that of any scene. I think it was to set up the kind of character that Serendipity is. I mean, she's about joy and entertainment and kind of levity. And, they did it in a somewhat off-color way that might offend some. But I mean, if it, I don't know. I don't. I didn't really look at that scene and be like, why doesn't she have a clothes on? Like why
No, I
would you
just look at
complain
the
about
scene and
Salma
just like
Hayek
there's
being nearly naked?
like with Dust Till
What's wrong
Dawn,
with you?
there's a point to that scene because it's representing that like it's an almost
The
entrancing.
point of the scene, the point
So
of
what that
that
tells me,
in
Julius,
Until
is
Dusk
you're
Till
not
Dawn,
critically analyzing the film because
the
that's a
point
very
of the scene in Until from Dusk Till Dawn is so Tarantino can suck on her foot.
As
Okay,
well as that. See, there's a dual thing with it, you know? At least there's
right. So yeah, I mean they serve the same purpose. If we're looking at it on face value, I mean, yeah,
I
no, I
guess
don't
so,
think
yeah.
it's a perfect film. I don't think it's a perfect film. Um, I really like the film a lot. You know, I like it for and it is very dated. I mean, a lot of Kevin Smith, especially the early stuff, is very dated, with the exception of Clerks. I think Clerks
Yeah,
can
Clerks
work
is it's
no
great.
matter no matter what time period you
It's
watch it.
funny. Yeah.
His later films, when he becomes part of the system, part of the studio, I feel yeah they are very dated. You know, they adhere to the
The
current time and everything.
system.
So it's more of like whether you're willing to embrace that era of
Mhm.
film or not. And it's not for everyone. I get that. Jay and Silent Bob, those characters, their implementation, I mean, they serve a purpose in the film. They are like the guides to where Bethany has to, and it's also about her becoming more of a protagonist herself because they're constantly sniffing at her panties and she has to assert herself more and
Oh, I say
become
that's more or less
more.
Jay just trying to sniff her panties. Bob's just along for the ride.
Well, Bob's not as like down bad.
Bob's
Bob,
not a rapist. Bob is just chill.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah, but I mean, like, I understand where you're
Yeah.
coming from, you
I
know,
just
but
I like I get it. Like it's Kevin Smith, but it's just like I don't know, like the necessity and like you said, like they're supposed to be like these prophets, but like in the whole movie they don't really do anything besides from like causing more trouble, which I mean, I guess that is necessity
well,
for the plot and
I
funny enough, but
well,
and that was something
I
that
know
I
you're
was
gonna hate.
confused about because why are they called prophets if they have no, like, at least in the regular sense of the word, prophet is to like claim the future or like foresee the future. Um, but they had none of that, and that was kind of confusing.
yeah, and the only one that
I
really
think
helped her on
they're
her own journey was Bethany and even
well,
fucking
they're
Rufus.
I think their version of that was when, and this isn't exactly telling the future, but it is
Mhm.
like helping with the plan where Jay mentions about them going to the church and having them shut it down. You know, that's not telling the future, obviously, but
Yeah.
That's not really the
it
job.
is their
That's not something a prophet
implementation.
would do, though.
Well, what would a prophet do? I mean, they would just like, what would they just say,
They'd
hey, this
have
is
some
going to
sort of,
happen?
for example, I was when they were introduced, I was half expecting them to say something like, "We were high and we saw it in our like we had a psychotic vision, and they told us to come and help you out." And then that would be okay. So they're kind of a prophet, but no, that's not it. They were just there to get laid, and while that's kind of funny because it's showing how scummy they are, it's not really showing in any sense like how they're a prophet. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
not even
Oh,
their
that makes a lot of
introduction,
sense.
not even their introduction was prophetic. It was just
It was just
we
they
were
were
just
there
here.
beating up
We
kids.
were just here, and then now we're gonna beat up some teenagers.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it
No,
felt like
had they implemented the highness like a vision later on in the
yeah.
film, that would have served their role better. You know, like if they
anything,
had seen
Yeah.
events to
anything that
become.
Yeah.
well, I just
Or
say
maybe
hi
like he's
because,
like, yo, I took an acid trip and I saw the stars and they said
or
I had to
maybe
go north. You know,
well, it
like
doesn't even have to be drugs. It could just be like I took a shit and it looked like it was
Well,
telling
it
me to
would
go
work if
north.
it were drugs for those two. It would work
Exactly. Like
much
yeah,
better
for
if it
those
were
I
two,
brought up
drugs.
yeah.
dogs because that's what their character was. But it could have been anything that made
No.
them seem prophetic in the least sense. But they weren't prophetic, so that
They're
was
just
also kind of like
yeah, they're
they were
just
just
self
there.
inserts,
They
which
were
I
just there.
mean, you know,
Well, I mean, you're gonna hate me for saying this, but I
geez,
look at their implementation similarly. If we're looking at
I
the
swear to God,
plot
if you
of
say
the film,
R2D2 and C3PO,
I am going to say
which
that because
honestly, I'm not
I
gonna
think
lie,
they
that
have a
actually does
similar
make sense.
position.
That
It
does make
does make
sense. I'm
sense.
not gonna lie.
You know, if we're
That
looking
one does make
like
sense. And I
what,
will not yell at you for that one, because that does make
thank
sense.
you, Brian, because you're seeing clearly now. You're gaining your faith again.
But he is
Like
not fucking Vader.
what purpose does, excuse me, what purpose does C3PO have on the overall plot of A New Hope? He's there
He's
to talk. He's there to
exposition.
be funny and talk shit and,
Well, no,
and
he's
everything.
exposition too.
Well, I mean, yeah, but so were they. Like, so were they kind of. I mean,
No,
they
they
were there
weren't.
for like
No,
dirty jokes
No,
and shit.
no,
no, they were not exposition.
that's
They
not
were just there.
exposition. They were just there.
I
Julius,
don't think they were just there. I don't think they
Julius,
were
I
just
want you
there.
to
Also,
know that when
C-3PO and
Brian and I
R2D2
agree,
like help
like,
a lot more than these two. The only time that
br-
they really help is Jay, I guess, shooting the angel, but like even then that
that
didn't
wasn't
even
even a
help.
help.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
then obviously Bob, he took the driver into Aziro's chest, but like literally anyone could have done that. Even
But no
Rufus.
one else
Rufus
did
was
it.
closer.
Listen, they're fun characters. They're part of the Views universe. Kevin Smith
They kind
wanted
of
to have
tanked the
them in
movie.
there.
They
You
kind
you
of tanked
can
the
have.
movie.
I completely disagree with that. I think they make the
you're
film
moving the goalpost
a Kevin
again.
Smith film.
Sebastian.
How am I
You're moving
moving
the
the
goalpost again.
goalpost? What does that mean to you? Moving the goalpost.
Yeah, you're saying
What
that.
does that mean to you?
I agree. I wonder what does that mean? What does that mean?
Yeah, what the
You're
fuck does that even mean? What you bit
you're
in the soccer
changing
right
you're
now? We're
changing
talking about a
you're
movie.
changing the point you were making.
What point?
Well, for starters, the 3CPO, and now that it's been like now that Brian has like made it clear that it's not the same thing. You're like, oh
He
well, now
agreed
they're
with
just like
me. What are you talking
necessary
about? He agreed with
characters.
me.
Did you, Brian?
I agree to a certain extent. Like I
To
can
a certain
see,
extent.
well,
To
no,
a
because
certain
I can
extent.
see their thing, but I don't
From a
also
certain
like.
point of view.
That's also like, it's so wide and varying. It's also could be like fucking Bilbo Baggins and Sam Weistel. It could be any duo of characters that fit actually better
Okay,
than
okay.
C-3PO and R2D2
Not
Watch
due
it.
to the
Bilbo and
fact of
Sam,
It's
usefulness.
Frodo and
but
Sam. Not Bill. Leave. If you're gonna quote fucking Tolkien, get the shit right. You wouldn't know that because you're a dirty conservative who doesn't have values. Okay.
I
Okay.
swear. You have me for 20 minutes. I
Listen.
just want to let you know that.
holy shit, dude, we haven't gotten anything. We haven't talked about the movie because you've
Well,
been wanting
I
to
would
talk
say,
about Star Wars.
well,
Well,
real
no,
quick,
I was
what's
trying to.
Can we please stop talking about
I was trying to tell you
for
why.
once?
well, I
In
brought
a
my
way that I
concerns,
look
so
at
that's
it,
chill,
and then you
you know?
guys ate my ass after I brought it up briefly. So,
Because we
so
said we
you,
disagree,
it's
and you said, "How
Because
can you
as first
disagree?"
time viewers, I don't fucking see Vader. I see
Look,
well,
let's
I
Ben
just
mean,
move
you
Affleck.
on.
don't.
Let's just move on.
I see
Let's just
Good
move
Will
on.
Hunting.
Let's stop talking about Star Wars for once. Can we meet once and not talk about Star Wars?
No,
Let's just
never,
continue. Let's just
never.
please continue.
Listen, it's a Kevin Smith film. Star Wars
No.
will be brought up. Sorry, that's just the reality of the situation.
I'm
Sorry.
leaving. No. All right.
What the movie references it. Case closed. So anyway, we're done talking about Star Wars. Yeah. So the overall message I felt regarding the film, I
Yeah.
brought it up earlier, was about faith and having faith in everything and accepting kind of responsibility in that in the character of Bethany. Because there are points where she doesn't want the responsibility that a Christ figure would get. Now the thing about this is we're following the character of someone who is ultimately a messiah, you know, depending on how you look at it. So, like Brian, what do you think about just Bethany's journey in the film in general? Because it's
Yeah.
I can see why this would be controversial because in just saying
Because
Christ
she's a
had
woman?
descendants alone, well, I mean that's always going to be controversial, but just saying Christ had children at all would offend people in general.
Well, yeah,
You
that's the
know?
weird thing because it offends Catholics, but it does offend Christians due to the fact that Catholics believe that Jesus was the only kid. Christians understand that Mary and Joseph had future children, and they did, and they're even mentioned in the Bible, like, so I mean, I can see how it can offend people, but like people who really believe in Jesus, it won't offend them because, yeah, Jesus had siblings, but they are just not like the difference is that Jesus is God's son. Jesus isn't really Joseph's son, you know? It's not like there's a whole line of other messiahs after that came from Mary, So, like I said, like it's weird. I mean, I'm sure back then people didn't view it in the same way or in the same light, but that's also just like comes from just people growing their faith and slowly understanding like actual real Bible theology and understanding like what it really means to follow Christ and not just be offended by any little thing that mentions Jesus, Because you're offended by everything that mentions Jesus, and you can't really be in a conversation to discuss Jesus or discuss his life with people, you know?
I saw Sebastian itching as you were speaking.
Well, I mean, because it's like if you have a point about something, right? But if you feel so offended that someone brings up the point and has like a slight difference than you, and you can be like, I'm not talking about this, and it's like, well, I mean, then people will always have that figure of what that belief system is. And that, I mean, that's kind of with any movie that makes fun of Christianity or Catholicism or any belief that relates to God or Jesus, it's due to the fact of just the overwhelming of people who don't want to communicate about God or talk about God or talk about the realities of God, you know? So that's how I view it. And so with Bethany's journey, right? I know that was such a stretch. Like I said,
No, I wasn't. I was just looking at Sebastian
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure Sebastian agrees
because
with me.
he's
I don't know why
ready.
he's looking at me like that. But with Bethany's character, like I said, like obviously in the beginning, like it's really hard to get behind her due to the fact that the way how the actor is portraying her is just really it kind of reminds me of like those classic 1940s like almost beating wife like actresses like they talk in such an unnatural like voice and have such an unnatural like she's getting almost killed by like three children and she's like, oh hi, oh thank you for saving me, oh you know like I don't know like it just and there's a lot of scenes that don't make sense with like her
I
inflections
don't
of
think I see
speaking.
that.
And then obviously with the car breaking down, like it's just like a full 180. I'm like, okay, now I can actually see some emotions and her being like an actual human being. Now, my only thing, right, when I was looking at this character was, oh, the reason why she's acting kind of like such a downtrodden person is due to the fact of her trauma and what she went through with not being able to have a child
Yeah,
and being basically dumped by her husband, right?
I
But then
think
that
that she's playing it numb because of that reason. You
and
know what I
so
mean?
with the numbness, it just is so like I don't know, it doesn't feel real, you know? It doesn't feel like a real numbness. It feels like a played out like playing someone who can't have children. You know, it just I don't
Yeah,
know, it didn't feel real enough. And the only
Brian
other
would be
movie I've seen
focusing on
her
the woman.
In
and the
other
only other
words,
movie, no, I focus
Brian
on bullshit
is
on those two
invalidating the
fuckers,
experience that a woman
C-3PO and
would
R2D2, because
go
fuck
through.
them. They weren't needed in this film. I love you. They weren't needed.
Oh, watch out, man. That's crazy talk. That's
They were
crazy
not
talk.
needed. This movie could have done without them.
They really
But
could
no,
have. They
with
did nothing.
Bethany's character,
Other than
That's
Cypher
finally,
at the
insane.
the
beginning,
best
other
scenes
than
with
Cypher at the
her
beginning, they did nothing.
are with Alan Rickman. The best scenes are with her and the
Well,
angel.
I'm not
Like
disagreeing with that.
there's a lot of communication. There's actual depth, and there's a little bit of hilarity because Alan Rickman's dry comedy, it works very well, which I feel like it did excellent. They should have really emphasized in the dry comedy in this movie, less than the fucking weird, stupid bullshit of its era. Shit demon, shit demon. Like I don't know if you saw my face during that scene, but when the shit demon came out, I'm like, oh, okay.
I stopped paying
I'm like,
attention at your
I'm like,
screen
we're
when you
watching this
shared.
movie, really? Okay.
I stopped paying
When
attention at
Brian,
your
I mean,
screen when you share the reels of women dancing on TikTok for the thousandth
to,
time.
to be fair, Brian barely watched the film because he was
No.
on TikTok looking at mid-ass goth chicks. So, like, I mean, take
Whoa,
everything he
whoa,
says
whoa.
with a grain of salt.
We don't need to insult them. We can just insult Brian, okay? No need to.
Well, I didn't name
Fuck
them.
you. Fuck you.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
I'm here once again. I'm Julius. I'm here with Brian. So we were just talking about local murders right now. They were happening in our area.
Yes.
Obviously, this is a little disturbing. How do you feel about murder?
Murder, by definition, is bad because it's the murdering of someone else.
He was found in his car, bashed in skull.
How do you know this? Were you there or something?
gonna wrap it up on this one.
Yeah.
Um,
About time.
I think
No.
I am insulting
But no,
Brian.
Bethany's ending journey is cool. I think the last little line of like, "Do you believe?" and stuff, and she's like, "I don't know." It's like, no, you do.
Well, I think she's being playful there. I mean, the scene
it doesn't
that
come
really
off as
speaks to me,
playful.
well, the scene that speaks to me in this, excuse me, is
Yeah.
definitely where it's at Bethany's lowest point, where she's talking down Rickman's character in the river and everything, and it's about he's talking about like responsibility, and he's talking especially about like how he had to console Christ way
Yeah.
back when
That's a
Christ
very
found
good
out he
scene.
was a
Yeah.
Messiah. It's a
Yeah.
powerful scene, I
It's
think,
a very
because
good
it's
scene.
about
Yeah.
it's literally, I think it surpasses any one person's religious inclinations or whatever. I think it's just
Well, yeah,
about
because it's
being
really
who you
looking at.
are.
Well, I mean, I'm happy that you brought us into the discussion because I viewed it definitely as kind of like in the perspective, like, how like most Christians would view like with the Passion of Christ. It's very much like the pain of someone feeling so neglected and understanding that the future that they holds nothing to them, and they basically have to do this for the whole of humanity. Most people would not do that,
Yeah. Well, Sebastian, what do you think about that?
About what
The
specifically?
scene.
The
The
one with
one in the river?
yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of interesting to get that sort of background in terms of like I also had to help Jesus cope through this. Because like you said, it's a very universal experience that a lot of people go through, about having to face whatever responsibilities they have to face. And sometimes it doesn't feel fair, sometimes it doesn't feel right. And when we have to be that comforting person, sometimes we'd like to take those responsibilities away, but we can't because people have certain things that they just need to get done. So I thought that was pretty cool. That even the Son of God, or like God Himself, because I don't know. I think is it Catholics that think Jesus is God?
it's a weird thing to explain.
Regardless, either the
Just
Son
say
of God
Jesus.
or God
It's
Himself,
well, I mean Jesus, but yeah.
JC.
Jesus also went through this. So it kind of humanizes Him to some extent. And I thought that was pretty interesting.
And
It
there's nothing that
humanizes him to
Catholics hate
some
more
extent.
than
Huh?
It
there's
humanizes him to
nothing
some extent. No,
Well, to
here,
some
continue,
extent.
Julius. No.
Yeah, because
what
he's not necessarily human. He's divine. He's not like you or I. He's special.
Well, he was born here like you and I. That's the point, Because if he
Well, I
was,
think the
But he's
goal of
not
the
human.
film is definitely to humanize Christ as a figure. I mean, they do it through Bethany, but they also do it through like anecdotal monologues from characters who knew him in the film,
Like
like
owing
Rufus
like
saying that he's
owing
black.
or like owing him 20 like 12 bucks.
12
12
bucks.
bucks.
Yeah, that was
That's
pretty
right.
good. Like even
You
Jesus
know,
owes money. Like yeah, it
exactly.
definitely
I mean,
humanizes him.
yeah, and they don't show him at all through the film, which is an
I thought
interesting
it was pretty cool.
way of doing it.
Yep.
Having those attributes just reflected in Bethany as a character is what makes her an interesting protagonist. Obviously the acting is, it's up to taste or whatever. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not wasn't at the beginning. I'm not sold on her performance either, but I think she,
No,
especially in moments
it definitely
of
grows
sincerity,
on you
you know,
towards like halfway through. I think
yeah,
once we get to the train, I think that's when like a whole pivot within the actual film makes me feel like, oh, this is good. This is worth watching.
yeah. But you made a point earlier, Brian, that this is two films at once, where you have the film with Bartleby and Loki,
Mhm.
which is very, I mean, it's also campy. I mean, the whole film is campy, but
Yeah.
though they have more of the serious element because they're kind of tragic figures.
Mhm.
And obviously with Bethany and Jay and Rufus and Silent Bob and everything, it's more zany, but I like to look at it as like it's filled more with the heart because of Bethany's journey, you know? Um, but when they clash is when it's really cool, like what you say in the train scene, like seeing those worlds clash together. It's like, oh shit,
Yeah.
oh shit.
Next point, Julius. Do you have
Brian
another?
just hates women. I was just gonna say that.
That is something he
No,
does.
that is
That
not
is a
We
good
saw
point.
Brian at the beginning of the film. You baby killer.
I'm sorry. Actually, can I actually say something really interesting?
No.
Please.
The
We've been
ending,
waiting, Brian.
the ending interpretation of God, I thought was very interesting because
Well, like
you
when
know
we
what
see
it kind of
God.
reminds me of? It doesn't really remind me of like how we see God, but more or less how God sees us and more or less how we should see faith, you know? Because within Christianity and stuff like that, how you're supposed to see faith and how I guess God and Jesus sees us is that we're childlike figures in this world that they have created for us. And it's almost beautiful when we do the right things and it saddens them due to the fact that we do things that are hateful or sinful, right? So it's interesting that they kind of did, and this is what I viewed, that they did kind of like a 180 where they had God, where the figure that plays God, right? They have her play as like a childlike figure, exploring her surroundings, taking the beauty of small things and not really communicating with people due to the fact that God is such a higher being, that God finds the beauty in the most smallest of enjoyable things, unlike where people or angels, right? They're very much like on really thought, like thinking,
I do see
stressed,
that as a flaw,
fear.
though, because it doesn't address the fact that God is supposed to be omnipotent and all-knowing. So if God is these things, why can't he create beings that are able to understand him? Or why can't God express itself or herself or
Well,
himself in
that's
a
the
way
other
that
thing,
its
because
creations can
that's also
understand?
not Christianity. That's in Catholicism. The word of God, the mouth of God, the voice of God. Within Christianity, you just talk to God. You know, you communicate with God. You don't have, that's the thing. With Catholicism, there's another person who, no, that's not how God works. God talks to you. God
Well,
doesn't need
according to
other
you.
beings. Well, no, because that's just how God works. Because if God
Well,
needed
according
another
to you.
being, if God needed another being to communicate with you, that's not that's not God because then you're not
Correct.
believing. No, because here's the thing. God states that you're not supposed to believe in any other beings or put any idols. And that was also a really interesting scene too with because it's a little tongue in cheek with the whole holy cow with what's Jericho. No,
Peace.
not Jericho. With Meshach
Where he
Abednego.
shoots them, where he shoots all the um people in the
Yeah,
office.
Rubies.
they're supposed to be they're supposed to be idolaters and stuff because within within Christianity, God doesn't believe in idolatry. He says if you put idolatry before me, then that's bad. With Catholicism, they're saints. That's idolatry because God wouldn't have a middleman between you and him because God loves you and God would communicate with you. So
Well,
that's why
according
it's
to
a
you.
big. Well, all right, saying that just makes you sound. "Ugh,
Well, no, but it is though,
according
because they
to
have
your belief."
well, because they have different interpretations of the
Well,
same text.
that's what I'm saying. Within
And so you're
Catholicism,
saying that that's not
I don't know
real,
why.
that's not the real mythology. It's kind of crazy. It's
Well,
like
no,
me telling
because
you a myth about Zeus,
well, no,
and
because
then
you're
you're
saying
saying
no, because you're
that's not the
connecting
real
with
myth about
Christianity, and I'm
Zeus.
saying that's
That
not
is
the real
not the real
mythology
myth about
towards
Zeus.
Christianity. It's the real mythology for Catholicism, but it's not for Christianity. That's what I'm saying. That's where they're different because Christianity doesn't believe in the middleman, and Catholicism does. That's what I'm saying.
Regardless, can you agree that both religions believe that God is omnipotent and omniscient?
Omniscient?
All knowing.
Yeah, there you go. Love
Did
you.
I mispronounce that?
Yes.
No, I don't
What's it
think
pronounced like?
omniscient, right? Omniscient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Julia said it right the first time.
What did I say?
What?
Omniscient.
It sounded
No,
like you
you
said
said it.
omniscient.
Well, he
Oh, so
has
you're making
an
fun of my
accent.
accent.
I am. I love you.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, okay, gotcha,
So
gotcha.
oh,
You're
speak
wait.
racist.
English.
Shit.
Darn, I hear.
Um,
I only have low-key 3 minutes.
so
Oh,
if you
I
agree
love it.
that, then it's still interesting that they didn't
Yeah.
bring this. They didn't address the fact that for because this film is supposed to criticize Catholicism to a certain extent. Like it's supposed to criticize religion to a certain extent, or at least the way beliefs and faith, like how people interpret those,
Yeah,
and
because
the
it's
fact
The
looking
that
at the difference
systems, I
the
would
fact
between
that
say,
such
of
a
beliefs versus
such
Catholicism,
what religion
such an
is, you know?
important such an
the
important
structure of it.
Yeah.
the structure of it, and the fact that such an important point was not addressed, but it kind of left me like,
Wait, what
eh.
wasn't addressed? Like,
The fact that God, being all knowing, all powerful,
yeah.
isn't able to communicate with its own creations. because it's like so overworldly. But
within the other, yeah, like I'm saying,
Well,
within the Catholic,
they state that the reason, at least in Catholicism,
yeah,
as addressed in this film, is
that the voice
because
of
the
God is
voice
so
is too
powerful it would
powerful.
kill
It would
beings.
but
kill
that's not good
whoever.
enough.
That's how Bartleby is killed.
Right. But that's not good enough because
Why is that
an
not good
all
enough?
Why is that
because
not
an
good?
all-knowing, all-powerful being should be able to perform a mundane task, such as communicating with a creature
Well,
without
here's the
Well,
thing.
automatically.
that's
It's
why
mundane
the
to our
Metatron is
eyes, right?
there.
Yeah, because in God's eyes and in higher beings' eyes, we're actually just fucking mundane because we're doing mundane bullshit.
Correct. But
So
if you're
God's
supposed to
not
be
going to
all
communicate with
powerful,
us in
if you're supposed to
in the
be,
Catholic guys due to the fact that we're fucking little children. Why would you want to have a real intellectual conversation with a fucking baby? Good sir.
but it'll boop your nose
Yeah, because
and
God is
laugh about
funny.
it.
It literally said God is funny because God
Correct,
has a
correct,
sick sense of
correct,
humor. That's what
correct,
they're getting at.
correct. And still, it wasn't. They gave a reason as to why, but that reason does not have like it doesn't have a sufficient explanation. Why cannot God communicate in a way that doesn't make it deadly for its creations? And this was not addressed in the film.
Well, I think it is by the fact that the Metatron exists. It's like the Metatron is literally like a mouth for us. Like it's like
So
I have
it
a brain that
needs
communicates,
so
but I
so
need the
so.
mouth to make audible noises. I need
But
the
if it's
ears to
all
hear.
powerful, why cannot make it its own
Well,
mouth?
that's also
If we're
real quick.
looking at it like Voltron, you got the head, you
Voltron.
got the arms, you got the legs.
It's also
You need
well,
I
all of
have
them
no
to
idea
work.
what you're talking about.
Also
I have no idea
Sebastian,
what you're talking
in
about.
a big sense too. I'm sure this is also a big criticism from Kevin Smith due to the fact that he was a Catholic and he grew up Catholic, due to the fact that Catholicism, within its beliefs of having the middleman, doesn't make sense. And I think that's the point. Maybe you view it as
Well,
that's what's hitting is
if
that
that was part of
because
the
there's no real
criticism,
connection and there's no real thing about like,
if that was
well, if
part of the
God's all powerful,
criticism,
why can't he talk with people? Because there's not a real clear answer due to the
if
fact
that
that
was the criticism,
Catholicism
that would have
doesn't
been brought
have it.
up. Like that's what I'm talking about. If that was
Mm.
part of the criticism,
Yeah.
it would have been explicitly brought up in the film.
Well, I mean, here, I'm not gonna lie. I would half agree with you because there's a lot of scenes where they explicitly do have an opinion, but there's also a lot of subtlety within the film that I really enjoy within the writing, and that's really not on any of the scenes with
I
fucking
agree with that.
Dumb and
I
Dumber.
agree
But
with
like
that.
You
no
know?
one reacts in any sort of way to that explanation in a cognitive dissonant way. No one makes a face. No one makes like, huh? No one does anything. They just like, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense. God can't speak because he'll kill me, but God is all powerful, so can't he make a way to know? No, there's absolutely no
Well, I
observation
think they do
of that
question a lot
cognitive
of
dissonance.
I
They
think they
do.
question
They question a
throughout
lot
the
of
film
things,
about elements of God, and like
Yeah.
but not
they give
about
answers.
but not
It's just
about
a
the
matter of like
communication.
whether you
Like the
accept the
answers or not.
answer
Exactly.
or
And that's
not. You
kind
know,
of
I mean,
symbolic towards if you accept God or not, you know?
and that's the whole idea of what makes this film so effective as a religious or faith-based film is
Yeah.
that, you
It's
know,
like too bad,
it
so
does
sad. If you
reflect that
believe, you
real
believe.
life
If you don't, you
conversation.
don't, you know?
Because we could be talking about a film within the points you're bringing up could be relative to a film or religion in of itself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm
Like,
talking specifically about the film. I'm
what
talking
what I'm
specifically
saying
about
is
the
that
point that the film is trying to make,
Yeah, but the point of the
and
film
about
that
the
is
tools
not
that the
just
film
separate
has
from the film,
employed.
it's also including how people would view religion. I mean, if you look at a movie of Dogma, you're not gonna be like, "Oh, cool name, let me go watch it" because it has nothing to do with religion, you know?
But if it's all about criticizing it and there's no criticism of it,
It's not. I don't even think it's about even
I don't
criticizing
think
because
it's about
there's a
criticizing it.
big. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, the ending was beautiful because I mean, for as someone who is a believer, like it kind of acknowledges the existence of God, you know? It views it very differently with how like a Christian would view God, but like it does acknowledge the fact it's not bashing God, it's just bashing how people believe in God. And even then, I don't
Well,
even
I
think
would
it's
say
bashing, you know?
what I would say is what I would also say is I actually, and I'm not religious at all, but I would also agree with that it is beautiful as well. Just in terms of looking at the character, if we're looking at the character of Bethany of like finding belief and having struggle with it throughout the whole film, and then it ultimately, and her as well as like not being able to bear children, and then her reward by the end after sacrificing is being able to bear a child. I was near tears in that moment. And I was at work. You know, I was near like 100% at tears because I thought that was just such a beautiful resolution for that
It's a very
character,
good scene, yeah. It's very powerful.
you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I agree that
Yeah.
it
And
is
also
a
within
really wonderful way to end it.
you also have to think about it too within Christianity and like with I guess Catholicism as well. And I actually would say it's in a lot of Catholicism too. And even some faith because I don't really think and also I'm not like a historian of like theology, but like I've done courses on it. A lot of theologies and a lot
Are
of
you
belief
taking off your
systems.
pants?
No, I'm putting on a belt right now.
So you are taking off your pants.
No, I'm not. I'm putting on a belt. Leave me alone.
He
So
has two
basically,
minutes.
Tilt it
He
down.
has 2 minutes.
Tilt it
yes,
down.
I have to leave, good sir. Basically, a lot of belief systems, they have this thought of like, you don't have the higher intellect or have the capability to understand the all-knowing powerful, due to the fact that if you did, then the all-knowing and all-powerful wouldn't be the all-knowing and all-powerful. There would be no existence of God. God wouldn't be real due to that fact. So I think the reason why God's character is portrayed as a child is because, what's something that most people, they're like, oh, my child's
Godlike.
unknown to me, And it's because, the God doesn't need to be all powerful, all knowing representation. It just needs to be there for you. And that's the thing. God is powerful in the sense of just having and giving you love and understanding you. And I think that's one thing that Bethany felt as her character didn't have, that she didn't feel loved, she didn't feel garnered and stuff like that. Because a lot of the language isn't about like maybe there's like a line where she's like, well, God's all knowing, then why isn't it like I can have children and stuff like that? But a lot of it has to do with like feeling lost and left alone. And she even calls it out, she calls it out herself, saying, like, man, I wish that I felt loved and I wish that I had someone who was there who truly watched me over me. During the I think it was the dinner scene or the lake scene. Do you remember, Julius?
It's during the lake scene. It's at
The
her
lake.
lowest point that she's screaming at God, like, "What do you want from me?"
Yeah.
You know.
So I think it has to do that. That's a big reason with the whole reason why they portrayed God as kind of like a childlike figure is to be like, well, faith is a childlike thing. It's the glass. Wait, who was yeah, in the movie with the whole thing about like the glass, like you start off with like the littlest or whatever, and you slowly goes up and stuff like that. It's kind of like how a kid would. If you had a child, you would see them grow up, but you would want your kid to grow up the best way that you could. But sometimes they just might not, and it's out of your control. And that's how God views us. And so they did a whole 180. I mean,
Facts and logic.
that's just what I'm coming up with due to the fact of knowing this stuff and being a believer myself. So that's my piece on the film. I think it's great. Real quick, I do have to head out, but my last thought on
Brian, you
this movie,
beautiful soul. You
my last
beautiful,
thought on this
you
movie
beautiful
is that
bastard.
this movie is really good. It's very good, well done. I definitely don't prefer it over Clerks. I feel like a lot of religious movies are very like I feel like a lot of them like use God as a butt of a joke or like people who believe in God as a butt of a joke. And this movie didn't make me feel that way at all because it really identified what their goal was and what they wanted to achieve with this movie. And it didn't really make fun of believers. It didn't really make fun of people who believe in a certain way. It just said that, oh, that perspective might be skewed. And, that's a very
Yeah,
fair and accurate statement to make. It might
yeah.
be. It might
So,
also not
well,
be, but that's also a perspective. And they
it was
clearly state
about
that in the beginning of the movie,
well, it was ultimately about someone trying to save their faith, and that's yeah, regardless of religion, I mean, depending on how you look at faith, I think that's a struggle that everyone deals with,
Of course,
that's
yeah.
ultimately the human struggle is how to
Exactly, yeah.
preserve hope in the hopeless situation, you know.
Exactly, yeah.
So
And
I
that's a
think
big
it's
thing for
beautifully
people
portrayed.
who watch this and watch bumbling cinema and for anyone out there and stuff like that. It is a big journey. It's definitely rough, especially as someone who is a believer himself and stuff like that. It's a rough journey. But you know what? I've always felt very proud and very strong in my faith, even in my lowest times and stuff. But I have people who surround me, even though Sebastian makes fun of me and criticizes, I do believe that he's a brother of faith in the sense of he helps me with my faith. He may not view it that
Nice
way, but
shit.
he definitely helps me. And Julius, of course, as well. But no, I love you boys. I'll talk to you guys soon. Please call me after the call. Or send me a message. I might be with my family. But yeah, I gotta get going. Love you guys. was a
Take care,
great
Brian.
podcast.
Bye, Brian. Say goodbye to Brian, everybody. Dirty, dirty bastard. And now it's just you and me, Sebastian.
God save me.
Now the real conversation happens. God save me. Wow,
God
you
save
went on that journey also.
I just went on it.
You're Bethany.
Yeah, right now I'm asking God, why am I here right now?
God, if you are listening, that is giving your realism. Help me. Well, we'll close out the discussion, but
Okay.
ultimately, um, I was really excited to talk about this with both you guys because of how explosive it can get, but ultimately because I know I've seen the battles you've you've held with Brian regarding religion and God, and I mean, yeah, there's a whole podcast about that, on the life of Brian from last year and everything. Unfortunately, that wasn't filmed. I would have loved to see the faces that Brian was making, where he's like that. The spirit is coming out of me. But with this film, obviously, I think it was made with a different kind of attitude than,
Oh yeah.
say, Life of Brian, because
Yeah.
Kevin Smith
Well,
at the time was a Catholic. He's not religious anymore. He's kind of denounced religion ever since he went through a heart attack that nearly killed him a couple years ago, and he's good now and everything. But that ultimately that brush with death kind of changed how he views just life in general and everything. And it's really interesting. I know you guys brought up how the film is kind of dated in certain ways, and it is. It is. A lot of his films are. Um, but just seeing like the different filmmaker that he was is really interesting compared to his work today. You know what I mean?
I can't speak to that because I've never heard of this man before in my life.
Well, I encourage you to look up uh his work. I think especially his like lectures are really interesting. He's like
Kevin
you
what?
can tell Kevin
Kevin Smith?
Smith, my boy.
What else has he made?
One of my heroes, one of my idols. Even though I don't love all his films, there are some films that I think are actually pretty terrible. He's someone that I look to even today with the films that I make. The films that I make are very much influenced by Kevin Smith, and just his personality, his attitude towards film, towards filmmaking and humanity, I think is just very commendable.
Well, he
And
did The Rise of Skywalker.
well, he was in. I think he had a cameo in The Rise of Skywalker. He didn't direct the Rise of Skywalker.
Cool.
Back to the what's it called? Star Wars conversation. Um, but yeah, but ultimately, Sebastian, you said going into the film, you felt like you were gonna have a good time. Ultimately, did you have a good time watching it?
I think so. I think it was pretty enjoyable.
Mhm.
I do have my criticism just in terms of like the film because you can have like an old movie that is really well made because I've seen those. And you can have movies that have like a lot of inconsistencies, just like not just like in terms of theme or story, but just like the way it's made. And I feel like this movie was lacking in like a lot of aspects. I give it a good like 6 to 7 out of 10. Um, but otherwise it was like an interesting watch. It wasn't like it was pretty interesting. It was and the concept was pretty cool. Um, and to
Yeah.
see like everyone like even the angels were so humanized in the sense that like they drink and they want to fuck and they want to and they're
But they can't.
but they
They're
can't and
ill-equipped.
so it was that was a pretty cool take on it. So it didn't really feel very like religious or reverent in that sense. It was just more like another it, I saw it no different than I would see like a Percy Jackson movie, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Except
Another
perhaps,
film that utilizes the hero's journey.
yeah. So
Yes.
another Luke Skywalker or whatever.
I mean, I think the argument can be made that Percy Jackson
I'm not having
was
this. I'm not having
almost
this. I'm not having this.
100% modeled after Luke Skywalker. We can actually put money on that.
Okay. Okay. Let's. Um,
The capitalist shall rise. Uh,
um, but yeah, it was a very interesting. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
yeah. Well, I'm obviously coming from a very different viewpoint. You guys are coming from like newcomers to the Kevin Smith world. I'm someone who's kind of been, I hate to say the word, but indoctrinated, in the universe that is the View Askew universe, where it is really rewarding to see all the films just connected because each film is so much of its own story, like Dogma is, and you see these characters. And I think the points you guys made about Jay and Silent Bob's implementation, I understand it. Like I totally hear it and everything, but like just looking at it in the context of the larger world, I think it becomes clearer as to why they're here, you know? In
Mm,
my like I because they're just kind of like figures that are like I think what they're supposed to be because Kevin Smith grew up in New Jersey. He grew up in Redneck, New Jersey. He's very proud of his town and everything. I mean, the climax of this movie takes place in New Jersey, so it's a very his first film that he made was set in the convenience store that he worked in. He's all about his community, all about his home and everything. So I think the idea of those characters are to represent, in every one of his films, is to represent home, you know? And I just like
like
those characters
representing
are,
Jersey.
yeah, yeah, I think so. Like the
How
reasons
do those
why
two
he grew,
characters represent New Jersey?
well, for one thing, they're from New Jersey,
Okay.
and they have the personality of like people from New Jersey.
But
Um,
like,
you know,
but you can have the main protagonist be from New Jersey and have the personality of New Jersey, and that still would have been a better like introduction, like because the main character actually has like a purpose in the film. These two characters had nothing. And like we can argue, like you can talk about like the overall context of the cinematic universe, but it doesn't
sure,
matter
yeah.
because the job is not well done for this specific film. And
Well,
so
I mean,
if
it
it's
depends on
relying,
how you feel about it, I think. Like how they emotionally make you feel. If they make you laugh, like if the intent of Jay and Silent Bob is to make audiences like laugh, right? And they make the audience laugh, then they do serve their purpose on like a meta-contextual level, not just narrative, in my opinion.
I mean, sure, but like it's not.
Checkmate, liberals.
I just keep
Checkmate.
coming back to this idea that they were supposed to be some sort of prophet and they were none of
Right.
them. And so whatever excuse there was for them to be in the film was no longer there. Like story-wise, not talking about like what sort of role they serve as part of a storytelling tool, but just like as characters, they had no purpose being there.
I
Like
see that.
as
I
real
understand.
individuals in this world, they could have beaten up the teens and left, and the film would not have changed.
I see where you're coming from. I think they could have been utilized better as prophets. I mean, you have characters that are all about smoking weed and everything. And like that idea that you had about them getting high and then seeing a vision of the future is great and would have benefited the narrative overall. You know what I mean? Like at the lowest point. Um, yeah, no, it's not a perfect film. No, absolutely not. I'm definitely coming from a
It's not
very
The Room.
no, it's not The Room either.
It's not The Room. And you
No, it's
can't get
not,
more,
but
and that's an unfair comparison because you can't get more perfect than that. But
that's true. The Room is a very special, unique, um, it should have been an Oscar contender, you know?
I concur.
Um, I appreciate the film for its heart,
Mm.
and also I think it's
We're talking
also a
about
very
Dogma again,
clever
right?
film. Yeah, we're talking about Dogma.
Okay.
Also, The Room. All those go for The Room as well. But
Uh-huh.
the heart and the intelligence and the clever just premise of the film of two angels trying to loophole their way back into heaven, I appreciate that. That's really just original kind of
Yeah.
storytelling. It is as Kevin Smith as it gets, and you know,
No, like
I
I said,
liked it a lot.
it was a very interesting film and it had a lot of strong points. It just had that's why it's over a 5 and not under 1 but it also had a lot of lacking elements to it, which is why it's not a nine, an eight, or a nine. It's more of a seven.
It is not this bullshit. Well,
No, I genuinely enjoyed the film. I thought it was pretty good. I might even watch it again at some point down the line. It was pretty interesting.
would you be excited to hear that apparently they are finally getting work done on a sequel to Dogma?
Sequels tend to be trash, so I'm gonna say no, but I will watch it.
Dogma 2.
Especially if you say that the ideology of the whatever his name is, Kevin whatever, has changed, and more so become more atheist. Uh, it might be what Brian said. It might become to what Brian was saying he was happy this film was not, which is just a beat down on beliefs um and religion. And as much as I love bashing on such nonsense, um, I appreciate it when it's not when that's not just the whole point. When there's like an actual story and purpose to telling a story other than haha, religion stupid. Because yes,
Well,
religion's stupid, but we can have more than just that.
no, and I think this film is more than just
This
that.
film is more than just that for sure.
And the what I would be interested in a sequel is the fact that Kevin Smith, I think, is a very honest filmmaker. He's very hit and miss with the quality of his work, I think. But one of his more recent films, Clerks 3, which is very divisive in terms of what it is and how good it is for different audience members, it was a reaction to his heart attack. You know, him dealing with almost dying. You know, that movie was written as a response to that, and it had a really because they had a script for it beforehand that was much darker, much more fucked up, way more, you know, just
Real?
nihilistic almost.
Mhm.
But the movie that they made is much more sentimental. So I think it would be interesting to see a Dogma sequel that deals with that is post Smith heart attack. You know what I mean? To see how he encounters more like his own mortality in a religious context, especially now that he's not he wouldn't consider
Really.
himself a Catholic anymore. So, you know, I'm down. And you know what? They kind of teased it in Jay and Silent Bob reboot where Matt Damon did come back as Loki, and for just one scene where he said, "I'm Loki. I was Loki in the '90s before Marvel made it cool."
So kind of meta. I don't know.
Oh God, destroy the fourth wall. Are you kidding me?
I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that. I don't know how I feel about films just breaking the fourth wall. I think it works. It rarely works well. I think it really works well with Deadpool, just because that's what Deadpool is. But I don't know. I don't see it working here. I don't see it working here. Not in that
Let me
sense.
show you. Let me show you. I'll get a live reaction to Matt Damon and Jay and Silent Bob Strike or a reboot. No, no one's ever done this. We got the exclusive on Sebastian's reaction to Matt Damon's cameo in Jay and Silent Bob reboot. Oh, here we go. You ready, Seb? Sebby Webby?
Heavy Webby's writing.
Sebby Webby is wet and ready.
Hollywood. Hi. Remember me? I'm Loki.
Oh, it's super laggy.
Death from Dogma.
Uh-oh.
Now, if your kids are looking at you right now like, that's not Tom Hiddleston, just tell them I was Loki in the 90s, before it was cool. And I did it without the fake British accent. Anyway, for 20 years now, people ask, what happened to Loki at the end of Dogma? Did he go to hell?
I was wondering that.
Heavens, no. Pun intended. But I did almost unmake existence, so as punishment, God, who looks exactly like Alanis Morissette, banished me to life on Earth. Again. But not Wisconsin this time, thank Christ. No. God dropped me in the Mediterranean Sea, where I was rescued by Italian fishermen. I didn't even know who I was anymore. I had total amnesia. So, after the events of Dogma, I guess you could say I was born again. And what you're looking at now is Wait for it. My reborn identity. Oh, shit! Pun game, on point! You just got touched by an angel, son.
There answered your question, Matt. Matt Damon.
Uh,
And that's where we'll end it.
I am speechless.
All right. Well, guys, thank you so much. I would love to make this more of a monthly thing where I get together with Seb and Ryan over Zoom and watch a film that they've never seen and talk about it. I think that would be really, really fun. I've missed the podcasting, Sebastian. You
You
know,
haven't been doing it?
dude, I've been so
Oh, no,
busy
you've
with
been
Poncho and
In school? But you're done? Congratulations.
now I'm done with school. Thank you so much. So we have a little bit more time to play around with ourselves and argue about the cinema. So this was your first class in my film school. I have a bachelor's, in the field, so I can teach you a thing or two. So maybe once a month, who knows? Maybe we'll talk about a film that is new to both of you guys's.
Okay.
Fuck no.
I mean that's what this film was. So I'm down. As long as you promise not to mention Star Wars.
And
The second,
you know what?
Look, I'm telling you right now, and I'm glad it's recording. If you mention Star Wars in the next, if we spend more than I'll give you 2 minutes to talk about Star Wars. If you spend more than 2 minutes talking about Star Wars with Brian or about anything else in the next podcast, I am leaving. Okay? And the only caveat is that it's a Star Wars film. So we either watch the Christmas special. We either watch the Christmas special that I have not yet seen, or we don't talk about Star Wars.
Listen, that's fair.
Okay.
That's completely
good.
fair. And I don't blame you for feeling that way. That's fair.
I am a very just and benign being. So
well, it's interesting how reasonable a non-believer can be. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening. Have a good one. Stay safe and goodbye. I stop recording.